From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening. Even as the Libyan government today tried to demonstrate it is still in control of the country, there were clear and ominous signs that the noose is tightening around Muammar Qaddafi's regime. Today, anti-government forces in dramatic fashion consolidated their grip on Zawiya, a key city just 30 miles from the capital. And tonight, with rebel forces now practically at Tripoli's doorstep, both sides appear to be arming themselves for a make-or-break battle for Libya's seat of power. NBC's Jim Maseda traveled from Tripoli to Zawiya today and found a lot more than the government bargained for.
This is what the Libyan government wanted us to see: traffic jams in downtown Tripoli, Libyans going about their normal business. And as our press convoy left the capital, rings of pro-Qaddafi forces at fortified checkpoints with tanks and anti-aircraft artillery looking firmly in charge. But when we approached Zawiya, supposedly under government control, Qaddafi's public relations mission backfired. We found makeshift barricades built by rebels. Shots were fired in celebration. Pre-Qaddafi flag flew once again over this. Chants of "down with Qaddafi."
In fact, this is what we found: a town in the hands of the opposition and protected by soldiers who have defected.
And not just any town, Zawiya is in the Libyan leader's very heartland.
Now here, all people together, we love Libya, I hate Muammar Gaddafi.
The tide turned last Thursday when Qaddafi's forces fired on unarmed Libyans holding an anti-government sit-in next to a mosque. At least 7 protesters were killed, the mosque scarred by bullets. It was enough to make some troops switch sides.
Today in the whole of Libya, no casualties.
Qaddafi's son, Saif, appeared on state TV calling Zawiya only a minor problem, offering to pull back troops if the people compromised. Later, our government handlers did find a pro-Qaddafi demonstration for us outside of town. Several hundred proclaimed their love for their hero, but the damage was already done.
After all the propaganda, this is what's in store for Gaddafi and his regime. Less than 30 miles from the capital of Tripoli, these people are willing to die to unseat him. Jim Maseda, NBC News, Zawiya, Libya.
Meantime, Germany says it has conducted a secret military air mission into the Libyan desert to extract some of its citizens from the embattled country. Britain's Royal Air Force has also staged its own stealthy evacuations amid fears the violence is about to get even worse. NBC's Richard Engel is in the key rebel stronghold of Benghazi. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Lester. As you mentioned, foreign governments are extracting their citizens here. Everyone on the ground expects that this conflict will escalate even further. Foreign workers are escaping Libya in droves. According to the United Nations, 100,000 people have fled Libya since fighting began, all but stopping Libya's economy. Foreign workers ran Libya's oil industry. Now oil fields are still. Exports largely halted. People are leaving because of scenes like this. An internet video appears to show Qaddafi's forces executing rebels in the streets of Tripoli. The violence may have been too much even for Qaddafi's Ukrainian nurse, once described in a leaked U.S. cable as a voluptuous blonde always at his side. Now she's returned to Kiev. But Qaddafi's son, Saif, denies the regime is killing the opposition, denies the rebels are even a threat in interviews with foreign media, including our British partner ITN's Channel 4.
Your father's lost control of Benghazi. He must be disappointed. He must feel that this is a big blow.
Listen, in Benghazi there is 1.5 million people, and they are talking to us and calling us. People there are afraid of the militia on the ground. Because they're militia, armed militia.
Do you think he will ever get back the parts of Libya that he has lost?
It's not. Libya, Benghazi is part of Libya.
And what spirits is your father in?
Very good. Morals are very high.
But in Benghazi, the people don't seem frightened. They're building a new country here. Today, the opposition distributed food. Banks reopened. The opposition even named an independent government of what they now call Free Libya. And Free Libya is building an army. At an old court building in Benghazi, they've already collected the names of thousands of volunteers. Most want to go to the front lines. Others donate money, cars, and weapons.
The rebels are keeping some of the heavy weapons here. There are artillery rounds, rocket-propelled grenades, and what appears to be a box of live grenades. They say that most of the weapons have already been sent to Tripoli.
The rebels know Qaddafi and his family will hang on to Tripoli as long as they can. They say they plan to take the city by force.
Both sides now seem to be consolidating their forces, Lester. The rebels here in Benghazi, and there are reports tonight that Qaddafi's forces are planning a counteroffensive around Tripoli.
Richard, have any of the rebels you've spoken to, are any of them talking about what a post-Qaddafi government might look like and the risk of that Libya could become a failed state?
There is a risk that it could become a failed state. For 41 years, this country has had no real institutions at all. Gaddafi has run it like a cult of personality. There's no constitution, there's no parliament to speak of, so they know they will have to start from scratch. Right now, today, they were trying to put a leadership together, even here in Benghazi, but so far they don't have a consolidated leadership in this city alone, let alone a national plan. Lester?
More strong words and action this weekend from the United States and the United Nations. Both try to increase pressure on Muammar Gaddafi and pave the way for a post-Gaddafi Libya. NBC's Mike Vaquera has our report.
It was a rare display of international unity. By a vote of 15-0, the UN Security Council slapped sanctions on the Gaddafi regime.
This is a clear warning to the Libyan government that it must stop the killing.
The sanctions would freeze the assets of the Qaddafi family and close officials. That follows a similar move by the White House. Restrict travel outside of Libya. And ask the International Criminal Court to investigate possible Qaddafi war crimes, including the killing of his own citizens. Sent by President Obama to consult allies in Europe. Today, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said the U.S. is reaching out to Libyans, trying to organize in cities now held by anti-Qaddafi forces, and is ready and prepared to offer any kind of assistance to a post-Qaddafi government. This weekend, President Obama, for the first time, publicly called for Qaddafi's ouster. While backing that call, today Republican John McCain said the U.S. needs to go further.
We could impose and could have imposed a no-fly zone. They would have stopped flying if that had been imposed. They're using air power and helicopters to continue these massacres.
And Lester, another Senator Independent Joe Lieberman says the United States government should recognize those opposition leaders in Benghazi as the legitimate Libyan government and arm them. And meanwhile, consultations will continue this week here at the White House. The president meets tomorrow with Ban Ki-moon, the UN Secretary General. Lester?
When NBC Nightly News continues this Sunday.